Welcome to California in Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle, standing in for David Mastio today. California Governor Gavin Newsom's May budget proposal falls $7 billion short of a balanced budget for fiscal year 2024 to 2025, according to the state-funded non-partisan Legislative Analyst office. But it is an improvement. Joining me to tell us more is California reporter Kenneth Schrupp. Kenneth, what did the Legislative Analyst Office have to say about the latest budget proposal?
Hi, Eliana. The LAO said that this new budget proposal is a major improvement from the earlier budget issues that the state was facing. In January, they did say that the 24-25 deficit could have been as high as $73 billion. Now they're saying Newsom's May budget proposal, which includes many cuts, only falls about $7 billion short of being balanced. However, what they also do note is the state is likely to have deficits going through the next several years, which means that cuts in spending that are more sustained will be necessary to balance the budget in the years to come.
And what are some of the proposed cuts included in this May revision?
Well, one way that would save about $4 billion is delaying implementation of the state's new minimum wage for healthcare workers. This wage starts off at $23 an hour in June of this year, while rising to $25 an hour 2 years later. It would apply to not only people working healthcare jobs like nursing assistants, but also include anyone working at the hospital, such as janitors or even gift store workers. By raising costs of the state by billions of dollars a year, this would put a lot more pressure on the state budgets. And with many hospitals struggling to stay open, this could worsen the state's healthcare provision crisis, especially as we try to expand Medi-Cal. So one of the exemptions that the governor is seeking is for state-owned facilities. Another spending cut that the governor was seeking but has been opposed by state legislators is cutting in-home assistance to disabled or elderly illegal immigrants. This cut would have saved about $100 million a year, but I believe was just rejected by the state assembly or state senate. Governor Newsom expanded the provision of Medi-Cal to all illegal immigrants in the state starting on January 1st. This has led to perhaps 700,000 or even more people to become eligible for Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal currently does face care shortages because there just aren't enough doctors. People are waiting longer and longer for care. There are labor shortages, and it's likely that this, in combination with the healthcare minimum wage and expanding coverage, could lead to serious problems for the state's healthcare system in the future. It's really unclear how the state is going to increase the supply of doctors and make hospitals more fiscally sustainable at this rate.
And the LAO also kind of mentioned some concerns about taxes going forward, and they appear to have mentioned this controversial ballot measure. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, the LAO did say that there are some tax proposals at the ballot box that would impact the state's long-term fiscal health or ability to raise funds. There's something called the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act, also known as the TPA, that is trying to close this loophole created in 2017. This loophole has been used to pass and propose local taxes introduced by citizens groups at a lower tax threshold. Because typically, if a government introduces a tax or city council members introduce even like a local tax, you need a 2/3 vote to approve that. But in 2017, a court ruling has allowed citizens groups to put forward bond measures that create specific taxes for those bond measures with just a majority vote. So the TPA would close that loophole and require the 2/3 again. Now, the interesting thing is California Democrats have passed a measure that would go to the ballot that would require any rule raising voting requirements to pass by that higher voting requirement. So under the current California Constitution, the TPA would only need a majority of voters to pass, but because of this other measure on the ballot, it would need to have the support of 2/3 of voters. So if the Democrats' measure passes, then the TPA needs the vote of 2/3 of voters to pass. If the Democrats' measure does not pass, the TPA only needs a majority of voters to pass.
Are there any other measures on the ballot that we should be aware of, kind of in connection to the fiscal circumstances of the state?
Yes, there's this bill called ACA-1 that's going on the ballot as well that would allow property to be taxed at more than 1% of its value in relation to specific bonds. Right now, there is a property tax cap in California in the Constitution of 1%. ACA-1 would allow taxes in excess of 1% to be passed with 55% of voters instead of 2/3 of voters. This would go towards funding mostly for local projects. You can imagine that they'd want to, create a 0.1% property tax increase to fund additional local roads or local schools. This measure would probably increase the taxing ability of local areas, but this could also encourage people to move and go somewhere else.
Well, Kenneth, thank you for your insights on these stories. Listeners can keep up with these stories and more at thecentersquare.com.
Knowledge is power, and you deserve to know what happens in your state government. That's why the Center Square's reporting zeroes in on state authorities publishing stories that show where your money goes and who spends it. The Center Square gives power to the taxpayer by tracking politicians' use of the people's money and demanding transparency from state-run agencies. This is how the Center Square equips you, the American taxpayer, to hold your state government accountable. Sign up now for your state's Center Square newsletter at thecentersquare.com.